Tonight from Paris, a city locking down as it prepares to welcome the world. With just days until the Olympics begin, we take you inside the enormous security operation now underway, running through the heart of the capital.
How do you protect an athlete on a vessel like this?
Yeah, it's a form of gambling.
Also tonight, Kamala Harris steps into the spotlight. The Democratic frontrunner delivers her message after Biden's exit.
I know Donald Trump's type.
As her campaign ramps up, Republicans take aim. We break down the opportunities and the obstacles. And the head of the U.S. Secret Service grilled over the attempted assassination of Donald Trump.
That's shocking. That is absolutely unacceptable.
The unanswered questions and the calls for a resignation.
From CBC News, this is The National with Ian Hannah-Mansing and Chief Correspondent Adrian Arsenault in Paris.
Thank you for joining us, obviously, in front of the iconic Eiffel Tower. With just 4 days to go until the start of the Olympic Games, Paris is gearing up by locking down with a massive security operation underway in the heart of this capital city. And the police presence is really hard to miss. Around Paris today, officers from as far away as South Korea and Brazil here to help, to prepare for millions of visitors, athletes, and some of the world's top dignitaries. In total, organizers say some 45,000 officers will be on the ground. A major focus will be securing the Seine. The river and the neighborhoods around it will be the stage for the largest opening ceremony in Olympic history. Tonight, we'll take you behind the scenes as organizers prepare. But first, Ian is in Vancouver with more of tonight's top stories.
Thanks, Adrian. A pivotal moment for Kamala Harris tonight. For the first time since Joe Biden dropped his bid for re-election, Harris stepped into the spotlight and spoke publicly about her presidential aspirations. Her spirited speech marked a shift in tone for the Democrats as she laid out a preview of what's next. In just one day, her campaign says it's raised a record amount of money and garnered vital endorsements from powerful Democrats. Paul Hunter takes us through her first full day of campaigning just weeks before the Democratic National Convention.
In her first visit to what was Joe Biden's campaign headquarters, the enthusiasm from volunteers here. And then, as her husband called her up on stage, underlined that for Democrats, it's as if everything's changed. But what began as a thank you for volunteers turned into a preview of how Kamala Harris is now likely to take on Donald Trump directly, highlighting her background not just as vice president to Joe Biden, but as a former criminal prosecutor and attorney general in California.
In those roles, I took on perpetrators of all kinds. Predators who abused women. Fraudsters who ripped off consumers. Cheaters who broke the rules for their own gain. So hear me when I say, I know Donald Trump's type.
The crowd ate it up. So too, calling in from home, still recovering from COVID.
Joe.
I'm watching you, kid. I'm watching you, kid. I love you.
Joe Biden, the first to endorse Harris when he pulled out of the race for the White House, setting off a crazed 24 hours for the Democrat Party. Harris has since had endorsements from almost every senior Democrat and, says her campaign, an all-time record $81 million of donations in a single day, not to mention boosted confidence.
And when we fight, we win.
She's the future. Donald Trump is yesterday's chaos. I like that matchup between the prosecutor and the felon.
Look at all the contrast now. The other side has a nominee that can barely get a sentence out. He's approaching 80.
It's as if the past many weeks of worry over Joe Biden's fate never happened, even as Harris herself underlined that officially speaking, she's not quite yet the nominee.
And it is my intention to go out and earn this nomination and to win.
Paul, we just heard Harris say she wants to earn this nomination. Take us through what that could look like.
Yeah, well, fact is, given what so far seems to be effectively universal approval for Harris from within the party, there's almost no one she still needs to win over. Her campaign reportedly expects to have enough of Biden's delegates locked in for her to win by the middle of this week, likely to then be signed off upon by the party in the days afterward. But before all of that, she's got to choose a running mate. So expect that name quickly, because look, all of this is happening at hyperspeed in a party that hasn't seen anything like it in decades, and in many ways, not ever. That's why some of what's happening is unclear. But the bottom line, Ian, the enthusiasm for Harris within the party seems already unstoppable.
Paul Hunter in Washington. And so the Republican Party is already shifting its attention to Kamala Harris, launching a string of attack ads targeting her policies and personality. Richard Madden now with more on how the party is pivoting.
Kamala was in on it. She covered up Joe's obvious mental decline.
New attack ads have already hit the airwaves in key swing states as Republicans scramble to define their presumptive new opponent, Vice President Kamala Harris, by tying her record to President Joe Biden's.
They created this mess. No, Kamala owns this failed record.
Republicans slamming Harris for how they say she handled the immigration crisis in her role as the president's border czar.
As the border czar, that's Joe Biden's term, not mine, she bears direct responsibility for the chaos at our southern border.
Record illegal immigration.
A theme hit repeatedly in other ads, using Harris's own words from an interview 3 years ago that was widely criticized by some in her own party.
We've been to the border. We've been to the border.
You haven't been to the border.
And I haven't been to Europe. And I mean, I don't understand the point that you're making.
One Republican brushed her off as a diversity hire.
You just skipped over. What about white females? What about any other group? 100%. She was a DEI hire.
Donald Trump's running mate questioning her patriotism.
If you want to lead this country, you should feel grateful for it. You should feel a sense of gratitude. And I never hear that gratitude come through when I listen to Kamala Harris.
Last weekend, former President Trump went a step further.
Kamala, I call her Laughing Kamala. You ever watch her laugh? She's crazy.
As the Trump campaign attacks Harris's record and character, House Speaker Mike Johnson is accusing Democrats of hypocrisy.
This claims to be the party of democracy, small d democracy, right? 14 million people went through the process and chose this nominee, Joe Biden. Now a handful of people have gotten together and decided he's no longer suitable. That's not how this system works.
And Richard, this is only the beginning. We're now just over 24 hours into this new dynamic.
Yeah, Trump researchers are reviewing everything and anything from the vice president's political career to see what sticks. And it appears her environmental record is their latest attack. Now, Harris supports banning fracking. That could be a liability in the critical swing state of Pennsylvania. She also once supported banning plastic straws, which may be a turnoff to some voters. But ultimately, this is a big pivot for the Trump campaign that was built and designed to defeat Biden. But now, their strongest attack lines about his age and mental fitness can't be used anymore because Democrats can now say Trump is the oldest candidate in the race.
Richard Madden reporting tonight from Washington. There are calls tonight for the head of the U.S. Secret Service to resign over the security failures that allowed a gunman to fire shots at Donald Trump. Kimberly Cheadle sat through hours of scathing criticism from U.S. lawmakers. Karen Paul shows us just how intense it became.
I'm up here on the building where the supposed sniper took a shot.
The site of Donald Trump's fateful rally and attempted assassination under fresh scrutiny during a visit by the U.S. House Committee on Homeland Security.
Probably created more questions than answers today.
More questions, too, as another committee met in Washington, demanding to know why security failed so badly.
Today's hearing is for the American people who are seeking answers about the attempted assassination of President Trump. Do you solemnly swear?
Secret Service Director Kimberly Cheadle faced 4.5 hours of questions, accusations, and more calls to resign.
The Secret Service has a zero-fail mission, but it failed on July 13th.
Do you have a timeline at all from any of the day?
I have a timeline that does not have specifics.
That's shocking. That is absolutely unacceptable. That means you are a failure at your job.
Donald Trump was injured and one of his supporters was killed when 20-year-old Thomas Crooks opened fire from the roof of a warehouse less than 150 meters from the stage. Videos have surfaced from rally-goers who saw the shooter on the roof.
This was taken 2 minutes before the shooting started. Was there ever a moment where the Secret Service actually considered pausing the rally?
The Secret Service would have paused the rally had they known or been
So the
told
answer is
there
no.
was an actual threat.
The answer is no.
Trump says he would have postponed his speech if anyone had warned him.
Nobody said there was a problem.
Cheadle has accepted responsibility and vowed to get to the bottom of it.
Finding the answers to how this event occurred and making sure that it doesn't happen again.
We've asked for this information.
But that didn't satisfy many on the committee.
Both sides of the aisle today have asked for your resignation. Would you like to use my 5 minutes to draft your resignation letter, yes or no?
No, thank you.
You have not done your job. You have put two black eyes on your agency, and you need to go.
Congressman Langworthy introduced a resolution he hopes will be voted on this week, calling on President Joe Biden to fire her. Karen Pauls, CBC News, Winnipeg.
A sudden reversal tonight out of the U.S. Canadians traveling across the border with their dog this summer will no longer need to fill out multiple forms before entering the country. As we told you last week, U.S. officials were planning to require dogs to be microchipped, vaccinated against rabies, and accompanied by 2 forms, including one signed by a veterinarian. Now, the U.S. Centers for Disease Control says as long as the dog has been in a low-risk or rabies-free country for the last 6 months, it can cross the border with a single form that owners can fill in online. Fast-moving wildfires continue to threaten communities in Western Canada. Thousands of people have been forced from their homes or put on alert to leave at a moment's notice. There are more than 500 fires burning across BC and Alberta, more than half of them currently deemed out of control. One of those hotspots, the community of Williams Lake, that's north of Kamloops. A local state of emergency has been declared there, and that's where our Lindsay Duncombe begins tonight's coverage.
The fire came on fast on the outskirts of Williams Lake, sparked when high winds toppled a tree onto a power line.
While we were standing here, you could hear the oil drums from inside the warehouse exploding. You could hear tires popping from the heat.
The city declared a state of emergency. Crews held it back, but the problem here and in much of Western Canada is just how dry it is.
I'll flip my camera around here, and this is what most of the grass is looking like in town, as we haven't had much rain or anything.
In my 50-year life for living in Williams Lake, I have never seen this kind of aggressive fire. As you know, we haven't had any rain for the last month or so. In the area, the creek side is all bone dry. Everywhere is bone dry.
Another fire forced more than 200 people from the village of Wells to flee.
I think for me, my brain just stopped. I just didn't know what to do. I was running around in circles a little bit.
Crews are trying to save historic Barkerville, a Gold Rush era museum with 125 heritage buildings.
With these 2 lines, we think we can protect most of the buildings here. It's a very unique challenge because of all this wooden decking here.
The forecast is ominous. More heat, more lightning, and more wind. That's why the fire danger forecast in Alberta looks like this, extreme for much of the province.
Now that we've seen these really hot temperatures and some winds and really dry fuels around there, it's really ripe conditions for a wildfire to really take off.
Already, 7,500 people from northern Alberta have had to leave their homes. The worry is, with intensifying conditions, that number could go up. Lindsay Duncombe, CBC News, Vancouver.
There's some positive news tonight for wildfire evacuees in Newfoundland and Labrador. Nearly 10,000 residents of Labrador City are back home tonight, 10 days after being forced to flee.
A lot of emotion here today to realize it's over, what we went through, what it took to get here, but got here with no injury, no deaths.
The evacuation order was lifted at noon, though essential workers were allowed back in over the weekend. The fire that forced the town to empty is now considered low risk. Now it's over to Adrian in Paris. With just days now until the opening ceremony.
Yeah, that's right, Ian. It's starting to get exciting for people here as more athletes and dignitaries arrive in the city.
We need the Games more than ever, and we can't wait to see which new surprises they will have to offer in the next 3 weeks.
The president of the Paris 2024 Organizing Committee welcomed International Olympic Committee members today. And earlier, there was a special guest in the Olympic Village. French President Emmanuel Macron met with his country's athletes before the official start of the Games. So we will have exclusive access here on The National all this week as we look at the enormous task of preparing Paris for the Games. But tonight, let's just start you off with a quick look at what Paris is trying to pull off and where it gets tricky. So, welcome to the charm and the complexity of Paris 2024. The very things that will make these Olympic Games unique and beautiful also happen to be the things that might make them risky. Because in past Olympic Games, venues were often grouped together and located far outside of the big city. This time, they are scattered throughout Paris, and they happen to be held on the grounds of some of the most important landmarks here. So that means we're talking about competition genuinely at the base of the Eiffel Tower, at La Place de la Concorde, or on the Seine itself. Just to orient you, that's the Louvre. It's right near the edge of the Seine, which is simply over there. And all the people you see lined up here are just trying to get through, just to either cross it or go around the corner. But as you can see, it's largely locked down here and in dozens of other places across the city. To move now means navigating a maze of passageways, QR codes, and permissions. This is part of what Paris calls its anti-terrorism perimeter. There are some 40,000 fences built up around a 6-kilometer stretch of the Seine heading towards the Eiffel Tower. Because of the Olympic Games, there's now a military base in the city that is the largest since the Second World War. There are and will be fighter jets, helicopters with sharpshooters, and AI everywhere, in large part because of what will happen on the Seine. The Seine will effectively play host for the largest opening ceremony in the history of the Olympic Games. All those athletes floating down the river towards the Eiffel Tower. The initial plan called for some 600,000 spectators to line the route, but because of the logistical nightmare, it's now down to around 300,000. That is still huge and compared with past Olympic Games. Paris isn't exactly full, but you're about to see something that we haven't seen in a very long time. People, fans, families at the events. You certainly didn't see that in Beijing or Tokyo when the world was under the grip of COVID. The opening ceremony begins Friday at 8:24 p.m. 8:24, that's 2024. See what they did there? Game time is getting close. And when the Olympic Games begin, CBC will be your home for Paris 2024. We'll have all the major events across our platforms, including the opening ceremony. I'll be co-hosting our coverage with Scott Russell this Friday on CBC and GEM. And as we mentioned, much of that opening ceremony will wind its way through the heart of Paris along its main artery, the Seine River. It brings the promise of a great spectacle, but also an unprecedented security challenge.
You will have 35,000 law enforcement mobilized, the whole world watching.
Coming up, we're on the Seine with an up-close look at the massive plan to keep athletes and spectators safe.
Plus, newcomers to Canada facing big obstacles. How some looking for a place to live in Toronto are paying many months' rent up front.
Obviously, it shakes your stability.
The legal gray zone leaving many without a choice. And from a refugee camp in Kenya all the way to Nova Scotia.
Anytime I go home, I do miss them.
The latest chapter in their remarkable journey to Canada.
I'm glad that the workers are going back to work, definitely.
Provincial liquor stores in Ontario will reopen Tuesday now that LCBO workers are back on the job after a strike that lasted more than 2 weeks. Those workers ratified a deal on Sunday that will see them get an 8% wage increase over 3 years. Some newcomers to the Greater Toronto Area say they're paying thousands of dollars up front to try to secure housing. And as Lisa Shing shows us, experts say it's happening in an unregulated gray zone, leaving renters vulnerable to exploitation.
Her small one-bedroom apartment in downtown Toronto costs Lorena Portugal roughly $2,300 a month in rent. But when she was first trying to find a place, she paid a lot more up front, 4 months' worth.
Obviously, it shakes your stability.
Portugal and her boyfriend moved to Toronto from Peru 10 months ago and expected this to happen. Friends had told them stories of landlords suggesting payment of 6, even 12 months all at once.
You don't have an option, because if you mention, hey, I can't afford to pay you 4 months in advance, okay, just then look to another landlord or to another building.
Rafaela Cruz heard it from several real estate agents.
In our case, he was telling us, you don't have credit score, you don't have a job in Canada.
CBC News spoke with multiple newcomers to Canada who said it was the only way to secure a home in an increasingly competitive and expensive housing market. In Ontario, it's illegal to ask for more than first and last month's rent, but there's a gray area.
There's nothing stopping a tenant from offering to pay 5 months, 6 months, 7 months up front.
Some lawyers say many landlords are trying to protect themselves against the risk of tenants failing to pay, but that means the most vulnerable won't have a place to live.
If you think about refugee claimants, they take the hardest of the cake because they are the ones that are coming from displacement. They're the ones that might come with very precarious mental health and financial conditions.
Renters in Ontario can complain to the province's landlord and tenant board, but there's a months-long backlog to get a hearing, let alone a decision. So many are opting to do what they can to get a roof over their heads now. Lisa Shing, CBC News, Toronto.
Some healthcare workers are finally settling in on the East Coast after traveling from a refugee camp in Kenya.
I'm getting used to it, so it's becoming good.
The latest chapter in their remarkable journey to Canada. And the U.S. election upended late in the campaign after Joe Biden steps aside.
I know Donald Trump's type.
How could Kamala Harris fare against Donald Trump? We'll ask a pollster and seasoned political watcher. Plus, Adrian takes us on the Seine in Paris.
As beautiful as this all is, take a moment to consider how ambitious this is security-wise.
The monumental challenge of keeping the games safe. The National breaks down the stories shaping your world. Next. We are live in the CBC Vancouver newsroom, and we have a breaking news update for those of you in Alberta, where it's 11:24 Mountain Time. The town of Jasper and the national park now under an evacuation order because of a nearby wildfire. That order came down about an hour ago. Authorities say that the wildfire could hit the community in about 4 hours' time at around 3 a.m. Mountain. If you are in Jasper or Jasper National Park, or if you're in touch with people who are, authorities are asking you to leave that area immediately. Our colleagues in Alberta reporting that several roads and highways are closed, so if you are there and you're heading out, take Highway 16 westbound to British Columbia. But the alert at this hour is for the town of Jasper and Jasper National Park under an evacuation order right now. If you are there, please leave immediately. A new photo tonight to mark Prince George's 11th birthday. Kensington Palace says it was taken by his mother, the Princess of Wales. That's become a family tradition marking special occasions. We have an update tonight on a story we've been following for more than a year now. Healthcare workers who came to Nova Scotia from a refugee camp in Kenya are settling into their new jobs. They were recruited specifically to help fill a labor shortage. Kayla Hounsell shows us how they're adjusting to life in Canada.
Patricia Omar Kamsor and Abdifata Subreya say they love helping people, but they also say Canada has helped them.
I'm getting used to it, so it's becoming good.
So, honey, I want you to roll towards me.
They are continuing care assistants at a new nursing home in rural Nova Scotia, but their journey began a long way from here. How long have you lived here?
14 years.
We first met them at this refugee camp in Kenya. They'd been approved to come to Canada as healthcare workers under a new federal program that aims to bridge the gap between qualified displaced people and labor shortages. But they'd already been waiting 2 years.
You know, there's nothing that will make me believe it all or know that I will go.
They finally arrived in October as permanent residents. 300 people have now come to Canada this way. Ottawa hopes to resettle 2,000 people over the next few years.
It's made it a lot easier for us to transition to a new home, expand our workforce, and have enough staff to run the facility.
Do you want orange juice?
The newcomers say they are already creating relationships with the residents.
And I really love them. Anytime I go home, I do miss them.
You know, in our culture, if someone's elder, they are like our parents, so I'm always treat them like my parents.
But it has not been without challenges. They're looking for permanent housing now that it's time to move out of the homes they're renting from the company. There is no African food in this small coastal town, and though first attracted to the idea of snow,
what do you think?
Very good.
Sabrea has changed his mind.
Winter was never had.
They both plan to become nurses, and they're encouraging other Canadian companies to recruit from refugee camps because they say they've left many skilled friends behind. Kayla Hounsell, CBC News, Mahone Bay, Nova Scotia.
Now it's time to dig deeper into the stories shaping our world.
All these balconies.
Yeah. Adrian takes an eye-opening tour down the Seine to unpack a plan for Olympic security that's never been tried before.
It's a form of gambling. I mean, it's of course, it's a risk.
But first, if it all comes down to Harris versus Trump, who might have the winning edge?
And I wanted to say a few words about our president.
We break down how she would change the presidential campaign.
Kamala Harris lied about it.
And what kind of White House baggage might just weigh her down? Well, let's talk about this with our guest. Cornell Belcher is the president of Brilliant Corners Research and Strategy and a former pollster for President Barack Obama. And Chris Cillizza is a former editor-at-large for CNN. Cornell, let me start with you. What are the polls saying about a race between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump?
Well, one, I think we should stop looking at so many polls because they're not very predictive, right? They're instructive. I think we spend far too much time talking about polls, and in the end, we know that it's going to be a close race, right? So regardless of where the polls is right now, when you look at the battlegrounds, it's going to be a close race. I think what a lot of people are seeing in the polls, and look, it's still early. I think what you're seeing in some of the early polls right now is that there is an energy among sort of the base Democrats that's sort of begin to build up and should be very helpful as she begins to move on and really take command of this race.
But Cornell, you know, Canadians may not fully realize how critical that small group of so-called battleground states are, the Michigans, the Wisconsins, and so, you know, the race is going to be won or lost in that small handful of states. I know you don't like to dwell on polls, but how do you think things are looking there?
I don't care how things are looking today because they won't look that way in 2 or 3 weeks, right? I'm a pollster and we build campaigns, and we're literally going to spend $1 billion to change those polls. That said, again, it's going to be a toss-up race either way in most of those battleground states. But also, look, the battleground states have been expanding, right? You say Michigan and Wisconsin, but look for North Carolina to be a state where both campaigns spend a lot of money in, right? Look for, Arizona is again a state that came online as a battleground state. As the country grows more diverse, you see a lot more states like Georgia and North Carolina coming online as states that are really sort of battlegrounds where both campaigns are going to have to pitch a lot of time and effort and resources there trying to attract and move voters.
Chris, hard to believe, but it's barely been 24 hours since Harris entered this race, since we had a race at all. But we're already seeing a strategy by the Republicans to tie her to some of what they'd consider, I guess, Biden's political baggage. Give us some insight into the Republican strategy here.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think Cornell is wise to say 24 hours out, be careful about any polling or strategy conclusions because it's also new. But yes, I mean, I think we can expect some similar themes. The age piece obviously comes off the table as an attack on Democrats. Maybe it's an attack on Republicans because Donald Trump is 78 years old. But I think that comes off the table. But in terms of what Republicans are going to talk about other than age, they're still going to talk about immigration. They're going to note that Kamala Harris was put in charge of the border by Joe Biden, sort of put in charge of leading on that issue. They're going to talk about the economy and the Biden-Harris administration's policy. So I think the framework from a policy perspective are going to be similar. I think Kamala Harris is going to talk about abortion as much as she can. Joe Biden should have been talking about abortion as much as he can. That's a winning issue for Democrats. So I don't think the issue set is all that different. In terms of broader strategy, I do think it's probably a little early to say conclusively the Republicans are going to say this and Kamala Harris is going to say that, because I think they're still honestly kind of figuring it out.
And Chris, give us an American perspective on this for those of us in Canada. I get the sense that maybe Americans don't fully know Kamala Harris, and if they know her, it's as the vice president. Do you think she has time to kind of create her own clear brand?
So yes, I mean, look, ideally you spend more time doing this, but it's 4 months between now and the election. And as Cornell pointed out, there's going to be, $1 billion spent on an effort to brand Kamala Harris from a positive perspective by Democrats and from a negative perspective by Republicans. I think that maybe people have a broad sense of her favorable, unfavorable numbers are not great. They're a little bit better than Joe Biden's. They're a little bit worse than Donald Trump's, but none of those people are particularly well liked by the American public. I think the next month or so, I could believe 2 months, will be a chance for Kamala Harris to either introduce or reintroduce herself to folks. Now, she won't have that to herself. She won't have the playing field to herself. Republicans are going to do everything they can to negatively introduce or reintroduce her. I think that the battle over who Kamala Harris is critical, because the truth is, we kind of know who Donald Trump is. There's not a lot of mystery there. So I think that battle is sort of critical to see how this all winds up.
You each have about 45 seconds for this last answer, so maybe choose a couple of people or 3 people. Cornell, beginning with you. If Kamala Harris is the nominee for the Democrats, who do you think she will or should have as her vice president?
Look, it's such a tough question, and I'm not going to get a satisfactory answer, because I do think that it has to be someone that she's comfortable with, right? And in the end, I think we do a lot of sort of calculation about battleground states, but I'd rather see someone who she's comfortable with and someone that she can partner with. And a lot of conversation about it's got to be a white guy. It's got to be a white guy. I don't agree. I think it's got to be a team and something that fits the thematic of the time.
I got to ask a follow-up question. Really? Like, you think, given the state of the United States, that it doesn't necessarily have to be a white male to try to balance things out for people who might be uncomfortable with a woman of color?
I think most of the people who, and again, I work for the Obama campaign, I think most of the people who are uncomfortable with a woman of color not going to vote for the ticket regardless of who they put on. But there's enough voters out there who are very comfortable with the changing demographics of America that they'll be fine, and they energize that changing demographic around the 42% of the white vote that'll get. That's a majority in this country.
And Chris, 30 seconds for potential vice president candidate.
I'll go fast. I'll name some names, though I don't disagree with anything Cornell said. Okay, so I do think marginally someone in a swing state could help. So Josh Shapiro, the governor of Pennsylvania, I think Kamala Harris needs to win Pennsylvania. Shapiro helps there. Mark Kelly, the senator from Arizona, I think he's intriguing, and Arizona could be a swing state. And the last one I'll name, I think it could be interesting to pick Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer. 2 women on the ticket, a historic moment. And again, Michigan's a swing state. Those are my 3.
Yeah, fantastic talking to both of you. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Ian.
Thank you.
Coming up, I'll be back from Paris, where final preparations are taking shape ahead of Friday's opening ceremony.
Yeah, it's a big risk, but I mean, we're not doing great things without risks.
We hit the Seine River, where the growing excitement is backed up by a complicated security operation. That's next. As athletes descend on Paris, the city gears up for an Olympic-sized feat of its own.
For the city of Paris, this is going to be a very, very stressful day.
With the opening ceremony unfolding out in the open on the Seine. An ambitious plan to keep everyone safe. Organizers say they're confident.
We trust the authorities that they are able to deliver this kind of moment.
But with so many moving pieces, how will it all work? So tonight, we go behind the scenes to break down the elaborate plan to secure the Seine. Let's start with the view from above. For the opening ceremony, security has been divided into zones. In the red zone, no unauthorized vehicles, but pedestrians and cyclists will be allowed in. In the gray zone, security is tighter. Only people with accreditation or tickets will be allowed in, and most bridges in central Paris will be closed. To get a better sense of the scope of this operation and the risks involved, we went down to the Seine to meet some of those at the heart of the plan. To be on the Seine at any time is a bucket list moment. But to travel it with this captain on this boat following this particular route, that's pretty extraordinary.
I like Paris as a Parisian, but Paris on the Seine River, it's just amazing. So it's such a good event to make it. So I'm really proud of it, and I'm proud of my job, and I'm proud of France also. Yeah.
This is Captain Benjamin Benolier, and that job? Carrying some of the athletes down the river for the opening ceremony in open boats like his past Notre Dame, the Louvre, Paris's treasures, all the way to the Eiffel Tower and the awaiting presidents and prime ministers and global dignitaries. A plan that is possibly the most complicated part of hosting these Olympic Games. In all these places, all these balconies.
Yeah.
All these places overlooking.
Yeah, I think it's going to be full of people.
Paris is taking a chance and promising something that's never been tried before.
As beautiful as this all is, take a moment to consider how ambitious this is security-wise, how risky it is. A 6-kilometer stretch of water, and somehow French authorities have to keep everyone safe past all the buildings with windows and rooftops and parks and bridges overlooking as the athletes make their way down the Seine.
Now imagine looking at all this from the perspective of a security expert, Matthew Zagroski.
Bonjour.
We asked him to join us on this tour to see what stood out for him. It's a lot.
What's going through my head is that you have those decks along the river that are very narrow, and there's going to be about 100,000 people over there, 200,000 on the upper decks. It's a never-seen-before event. And for the city of Paris, and especially its police, this is going to be a very, very stressful day. Because you will have 35,000 law enforcement mobilized, the whole world watching, and really something unprecedented. It's 160 boats exactly, I think, 10,000 athletes.
How do you protect an athlete on a vessel like this?
Yeah, it's a form of gambling. I mean, it's of course it's a risk, and sure, there can be a sniper, there can be someone throwing something at athletes. Yeah. But here, it's really the work of intelligence services. If on that specific day someone is ready to commit something, there might be some damage.
Get to attackers before they strike. The dark urgency of that so terribly clear after the attempted assassination of former President Trump by a rooftop sniper. But make no mistake, there were worries well before that. ISIS is reportedly again trying to sow fear, promising horror at the Olympics. French intelligence services say they've already interrupted 2 terror plots. And a French soldier was stabbed at a train station. Counter-terror drills have been underway for months, mock hostage takings, and so much worse. Most of that happening out of sight of the public. But what Parisians are seeing more of are the seemingly endless barriers and evolving rules for who goes where and when. It's already frustrating.
For the anxious, some words about trust from three-time Olympic champion and the head of the Paris Organizing Committee, Tony Estanguet.
We trust the authorities that they are able to deliver this kind of moment in total security, because the principle is security is #1 priority. And from this security, we built all the rest.
He knows that depending on security concerns, plans can change, including for the opening ceremony.
We are able to reduce a little bit the number of people in certain zones and making sure that, again, the athletes will be in good conditions.
How much time do you need to trigger Plan B, though? I mean, can you do it within a day? Can you do it within hours?
The idea is definitely to adapt the opening ceremony till the last minute and making sure that it will be in the best conditions. We don't want to play with security, so definitely at the end of the day, it's to make sure that everyone will be in perfect conditions to enjoy this moment.
The dream has a price, and there is no margin for error on safety. The numbers are dizzying. As many as 45,000 police deployed, 18,000 members of the military, 40,000 barriers, and 40 countries asked to help provide security.
Et là, les bras nus, tu t'arrêtes vraiment.
But barriers need people watching them, checking bags and tickets and accreditation. And those like Paul Duval doing the training have been concerned for a while they don't have enough people to do the work.
On était déjà un métier en tension avant les Jeux Olympiques.
We were a profession already stressed by shortages before the Olympics. Now, according to the latest figures, we're still going to be 8,000 short. Having said that, a lot has been done in terms of training. Will we have the numbers? Unfortunately, we won't know until the last minute.
New recruit Nolwenn Ilunga seems to know exactly what she's signing up for.
Tu sais qu'il y a des risques parce que tu mets.
You're well aware of the risks. I mean, in my mind, there are terror attacks that have happened in this country recently. You know the ones, in 2015. I know that I'm putting myself at risk by doing this job, but I still think it's important. And my mission is to protect our citizens above all.
The vetting required, the training, it's all making it harder to hire, and they're running out of time. In addition to all those involved with the Olympics, 15 million tourists are on their way. No one in France takes this lightly or is naive about the scale of this challenge. Captain Benoliel certainly isn't.
Did you think at the time when they made the pitch that they were taking a risk?
I think, yeah, they take the risk. Yeah, it's a big risk, but I mean, we're not doing great things without risks.
So they press on with Plan A and wait for the games to begin.
We've got much more this week from Paris. Coming up tomorrow night, rare access inside and on top of one of the most iconic buildings in Europe, nearly lost to a devastating fire 5 years ago. We'll have the construction and the comeback story of the Notre Dame Cathedral.
We're above Paris. This is the construction site for the restoration of Notre Dame Cathedral. Everything that is happening at Notre Dame Cathedral is an homage to how it was built some 800 years ago. All of the roofing that you see, all of the woodwork, it's been a matter of not just sourcing the right wood, but precisely the right trees, the right stones. The hope is you won't be able to see what happened. The fire itself will just become a note in the history books, but hardly the end of the story of the Cathedral of Notre Dame.
So that's all for us tonight from Paris. We'll be back with that and much more tomorrow night. Until then, it's over to Ian in Vancouver.
Thanks, Adrian. Coming up, a special day for two young boys who've both endured difficult journeys.
I was so excited and I never thought I would get to do this.
How these honorary Mounties rose to the occasion, next in our moment. Well, this is Logan and Ben in their young lives. Both have braved difficult cancer journeys, and they both got a big surprise recently, traveling to Regina for a very special mission. Not only did they get those red surge uniforms, they were given the opportunity to put them to use, touring the RCMP depot, inspecting the troops, and acting as commanding officers. Tonight, their special day is our moment.
My mom tricked me and said we were just volunteering, but when we went in the plane, I started getting suspicious that we were taking a plane ride. So then I found out. It's been really fun. I thought I was gonna be sitting at a table and just saying, hey.
You accept responsibility of commanding officers for today's day.
We've been in SWAT vehicles, we've been holding guns. It's been really awesome. It blew my mind.
Everything was just fun.
I was so excited and I never thought I would get to do this.
They do miss out on a lot just because of the amount of doctor's appointments, the amount of times they have to get chemo. It's just giving them that positive experience in that moment that they'll remember forever.
I was surprised at first, and it's actually really cool. That's what I'm gonna say. It's really cool.
They've had so many bad days. It's nice to be able to give them a good day.
I want to be a police officer.
Oh man, they are from Central Casting, and to go to such a quintessentially Canadian place like Depot in Regina, I mean, it's been a long, hard road for the two of them, but you wouldn't be able to tell from the way that, first of all, they're so appreciative, but just as I say, perfect in their roles in the Red Surge. For all of us here at The National, thank you for being with us. You can watch anywhere, anytime on the free CBC News app and subscribe to The National's YouTube channel. I'm Ian Hannamansing in Vancouver. Good night.